Space, the final frontier. Space Station Ashland sits on the edge of Federation space with its companion ship, the U.S.S. Dilamus Christian. The space around them is full of mystery and strange wonders, where secrets are kept and danger lurks around every corner. The crew of the Dilamus Christian must navigate treacherous waters as they work to protect the Federation. But as they peer into the unknown, they will discover that the line between friend and foe is not always clear. They will be tested like never before and will face challenges that will push them to their limits. Join us on this adventure as we explore the farthest reaches of space and uncover the hidden truths that lie within the shadows. Tabletop Journeys presents Star Trek: Preservations.
Captain's Log, Stardate 59272.3173. The Dilamus Christian has arrived at the Talarian colony of Dovrek III in response to an urgent request for assistance. The colony recently deployed an orbital solar shade to counteract extreme solar radiation, but something has gone wrong. Violent storms are tearing through the planet's atmosphere and local infrastructure is failing. Administrator Mavor has welcomed our aid, cautiously, but it is clear that not all members of the colony's leadership share his sentiment. Our priority is to determine the cause of the storms as quickly as possible, as the storms are intensifying. If we do not act soon, the colony may not survive.
As we begin, we find the Dilamus Christian coming out of warp in the system. You're able to transport down to the designated location with an away team of your choosing to meet the administrator in his office. While I know that there was some talk about splitting up to have some folks meet with the major, the administrator says he will join us at some point.
All right, then I'll leave Kem in charge on the bridge, unless Chizilra, you want to stay and bring in your backup character, Adam?
Actually, yeah, if you're going down, then I'd be staying up and I will bring down my second engineer.
Okay. Actually, if you're going to bring your second engineer, I'm going to ask Tanari to stay as well. And then, Dave, can you bring in Lieutenant Kem?
Yes, I can.
All right.
All right. And just so I get the names right, Adam, your second engineer is?
Lieutenant Junior Grade Duncan Vellerick. He is a human.
Gotcha.
All right, we head for Transporter 1.
You beam down to the planet. You're led by the Talarian guard to the administrator's room. It's a pretty nice looking complex. You can definitely see the effects of the storm from the planet from inside. It's weird coloring in the lights. It's almost like a intense version of the Aurora Borealis all over. It is daytime. It's like around 10, 11 o'clock in the day. It just makes it a little weird to see it like this. And when you get to the office, the door opens. You are led inside, and sitting at the desk is Administrator Mavor. He stands up, and you can see that things are not perfect. As you were walking down the halls, you'd seen like lights flicker from time to time. When you're in his office, there are metallic walls. Some of the lights dim a little bit here and there, and he's got almost like a work console away from his big desk, and you can definitely get the sense that this is set up to impress people with the desk he's sitting at, but it doesn't even look like that's the desk he works at, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, this is the meeting office, not the work office.
Correct. His uniform is neatly pressed. He is not wearing specific armor other than the padding would qualify as some kind of armor, but his uniform looks good. It is military in nature. and he says, "Welcome to Dovrek III. I'm Administrator Mavor." And then he gestures to a side alcove, and from the shadows emerges Major Lennox. He is what the reports have shown: very tall, very broad shouldered, darker complected, Talarian. No niceties about his face. He is stern, does not look particularly pleased to be here or to see you and your group in specific. And he simply addresses your group. "I am duty bound to offer my assistance, but my counsel would be against utilizing Starfleet and the Federation for this internal Talarian matter. As the administrator has said, welcome to Dovrek III."
I make the traditional Talarian gesture of greeting. I assume they have some culturally appropriate
Yes.
way to do so. I Administrator Mavor, Major. I'm Captain Sabian Tobor of the U.S.S. Dilamus Christian. This is my Chief Science Officer, Lieutenant Nilan, my Assistant Chief Engineer, and my Chief of Security. And Major, I appreciate your candor and forthright honesty. I understand how wanting to keep an internal matter would be desirable to some, but I assure you that we are solely here on a humanitarian level to assist you and your people in repairing and restoring the ecosystem to its natural and habitable state. And I give them the Presence Command 17 smile. Ding!
Yeah. All right. We are going to close the scene. So we're going to remove one momentum, but we are back into that scene where the folks in the room have been introduced at this point, and the administrator hits a button, a side door opens, and in comes a Talarian woman who simply says, "Hello, I'm Dr. Kalar. I am the lead scientist here on the colony and in charge of the deployment and operation of the solar shade."
Doctor, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've been a huge fan of your research, and I've been devouring every scrap of article I can find on your work here. And it's been fascinating to see what you're able to do with this technology.
Thank you very much, Captain. A lot of my work is a bit derivative from some of the science that has been conducted on the Dyson sphere by the Federation in general and many other polities. My government has not seen fit to send a delegation to partake in that research firsthand, but I have had a number of conversations with the teams there via subspace channels, again afforded by the Federation, so that I could learn more directly from their research, and that has yielded very positive results with our own development of the solar shade system. Unfortunately, I fear that it may be involved with some of the intensifying weather events here.
That is my fear as well, and the hypothesis my team and I are operating under. If the administrator does not mind, I would love to have the doctor accompany us back up to our ship, and we can begin taking some orbital scans and doing some high fidelity sensor sweeps and try to create a model for the weather system and try and see if we can't identify its root cause and how we can fix it, short of completely dismantling the solar shade.
As the administrator looked like he was about to speak, Major Krennic steps in. "I don't think that'll be necessary. First of all, storms are a part of everyday life in these systems. Second, it is not necessary. In preparation for your arrival, we have appropriated space and provided equipment, isolated power, and the ability for you to communicate with your ship and have your data and research sent here so you can work in conjunction with our teams to make sure that they are learning from people in the know.
I look to the administrator.
It would seem to me to be more efficient if you were able to work from here, so we have more of our people learning firsthand. If the doctor's correct, it is likely that whatever correction must be made, our people will have to learn how to make it, lest we be permanently reliant on Federation for aid.
Oh, absolutely. Again, the Dilamus Christian sensor suite is of the latest Federation generation. So I was merely offering it to be able to attempt to analyze the situation some more. My science team has prepared a series of atmospheric probes we would like to deploy in order to, again, gather more data on what is going on and if it is, as the major says, just natural, or if it is somehow being artificially intensified by the disruption that the solar shade is making.
And again, Major Canuck, I think I would like to observe the details on these probes first.
Absolutely.
I will have my security personnel made available. You can send the specs to their stations. They will work on it within the next few hours.
I gesture to Neelan, who has a data pad with them already on it.
It is pretty clear that Dr. Kalar has an expression that doesn't seem to like that turn of events. Lacey?
I was wondering, I just want to be open with the empathy aspect of Morella. I am interested in knowing if some of this almost aggression is more of defensiveness or some sort of subterfuge or trying to hide something.
I really like that line of questioning. So I do think there's a bit of a challenge here because there are nuances and levels to what you're picking up on just through the verbal exchange. With your abilities, you would be able to parse that better than most. I would definitely say that this is going to be a 1 difficulty simply because your natural abilities are informing the base information. A lot of this challenge is going to be taken care of just because you're beta Z, but there's a bit of a nuance to what's happening. So with a 1 difficulty, you can certainly make that roll.
Do we have momentum? So,
Yes, as a matter of fact, you have 5.
okay. Can I use a momentum to buy an extra die?
You
Definitely not
may.
a situation.
Yep, you may indeed. You could make it a threat. You could say, "Hey, man, tell me what's up."
And give him the evil eye.
What kind of role would this be? Would this be like maybe a control?
Honestly, I might think because you're looking for subterfuge is so I would certainly think this is probably more of an insight security because you're looking, is this person like who around me is hiding something? Who around me is telling me the truth or getting into the deep mystery of it all?
So all 3 dice were successes. Barely.
Excellent. So that gives you with 2 momentum in that particular case, topping you off. With your abilities, you can tell that the subterfuge is coming from Dr. Kalara. There's information she is not relating in this meeting. And she is definitively worried about something. And that worry got exponentially worse once she heard that things were going to go through the major's team and that could take a couple hours. From the major, you definitely feel that he's extraordinarily dismissive of the doctor's finding. Any mention of the weather and the storms, he's like brushing it off his shoulders as whatever. But he's also very, and legitimately so, defensive about what he feels is Talarian security, and he feels information security is very important, and he is very worried about Talarian dependence on outside powers. And from the administrator, you get a sense of caught between both. There's things that the administrator wants, more leaning towards the doctor, but he feels very limited by the major. There's some reason why he's not going to go as far as he might want to whenever the major kind of makes a facial gesture or a comment.
Okay, so just to clarify about the major's feelings, it seems like he's maybe dismissive and maybe doesn't trust and doesn't want to really pay attention to some of the stuff that the science officer is saying. But he doesn't seem like he's any suspicious hiding things. It just seems like he maybe doesn't trust or care.
Correct. Yeah, the only duplicity you catch is from the doctor, and that's she's hiding something. Not that she told a lie, but she's definitely hiding something. The major's probably, whether purposely or not, one of the most open book people you have ever encountered. What you see is what you get. He doesn't seem to want to hide anything or whatever. Culturally speaking, from a Betazoid perspective, even if you find some of his beliefs to be fairly repugnant, it's actually refreshing that at least he's out in the open.
And then
he's a dink, but at least I know it.
no, definitely refreshing. Everybody always is doing some double speak kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The doctor seemed to be nervous specifically about the time or not going. Like we had asked for her to come with us and he said no. And those were the two things, or one more than the other?
It was definitely more on the length of time. The doctor seemed to not like the fact that the captain's suggestion would not start for an extra 2 hours. That seemed to be the moment where she got like, oh, but I held her tongue.
I think I will, if there is a opportunity for me to pipe up, we'll say I'm really eager to get started and excited to work with you under your lead with their team.
Excellent. Have your people send the information. I'll go prepare a detail to escort you to the lab. And the major exits the room, leaving you and the administrator and the doctor.
I smile that winning smile. I'm like, isn't he just lovely?
The administrator pipes up and he says, "You'll have to forgive the major. He's one of the few Talarians that was involved in things before neutrality pacts were signed with the Dominion.
I see.
He has misgivings about the Federation.
His experiences are his own. And that is why we're here, is to help provide more experiences to help sway anyone who is still undecided about the mutually beneficial nature of the relationship between the Talarian people and the Federation.
Tactically, I'm sure he recognizes it. He is of the opinion, however, and has stated so, that he wishes our agreements were far more limited. That said, I do strongly appreciate your arrival and timely arrival. That the storms have been bad, but they do wax and wane a bit. We've yet to nail down a specific model that can give us an idea of when they will strike, but they had been getting worse for a while. We're at a bit of a lull right now, but when they intensify, it can get pretty bad.
Indeed. In fact, my crew is monitoring the atmospheric disturbances at this point and determining its effect on our transporter technology. And we may, in fact, need to retire to our vessel if the storms begin to intensify. In fact, if we are going to work here in your lab, I'd like to get started as soon as we can, such that my team has the minimal amount of risk of being stranded here on the planet and unable to return to the ship.
Of course. I believe the details should be waiting for you by the time we finish here. Again, thank you.
It is always our pleasure to help friends in need. I'll let the scientists do their sciencey thing.
Okay.
And I smile to Nilon and I'll tap my comm badge. Captain of the Dilamus Christian, wanted to beam up.
Make that happen.
Captain, you were beamed up, and down on the planet we have Lieutenant Nealon, Duncan Valaric, and Lieutenant Kem. So the three of you are escorted by a Republic Guard detail to the lab. Dr. Kalar goes with you. The vehicle you're in is a ground effects vehicle. And the guards are in like the front compartment driving it, and then the back is more like a not a limo. It's more like an APC style where you climb in through the back hatch, and then there's bench seating against the walls of the vehicle. You can seat comfortably. They're comfortable seats. They do have
Luminica,
seatbelt
I do
and
have a
restraints.
question.
Yes.
Considering the major's attitude and whatnot, how am I armed?
So this is largely an engineering and diplomatic mission. If you
Mhm.
have a type 1 phaser, the little credit card type, that would not be considered inappropriate. Anything larger than that would definitively increase threat.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And that's merely because you're security. If anybody else wanted a phaser, that would just increase threat. A security officer gets the card at no threat, and you'd be 1 for the handheld and 2 for the rifle or whatever the standard cost for that would be, and 1 level higher for anybody else in this particular situation.
Okay. I just wanted to know where I was at.
Yep, right. Riding in the vehicle, the team is there. The drivers really don't say a whole lot. They're just doing their duty. Kalar says to the group when she's in the back, isolated, she says, "You have to launch those probes as soon as possible." I was forbidden from providing proper information in that meeting. Effectively, the major exercised his rights as the security command to verify our preliminary results with Talarian command before I was allowed to say anything.
Can you expand on that now that we're in a little bit more of a private space?
Yes, but if it gets out that I let on, there could be ramifications. Our preliminary reports say that the storms are going to get more intense. I don't know why or what we can do to prevent it. I do know that the solar shade is impacting this somehow. I just haven't figured out how or what we can do to fix it. But our best models show that the storm should be building every few hours. And we should be reaching exceptionally dangerous levels of storm activity within 4 hours. Mechanically speaking, when it reaches storm trait 2, that's going to have some impacts. That will be 2 hours from now. It will reach storm track 3 2 hours from then, and so on and so forth, all the way to 5, which would be catastrophic loss of the colony.
Why is the major resistant to you following this? What is causing him to not trust your data?
He even tried to block my installment as the lead scientist, but because I am the only Talarian studying the work of the Dyson Sphere scientific community, there was nobody else to engage this project. And while there are other worlds that could possibly be used for agrarian purposes, this is the closest to the main space lanes. This is the closest in proximity to your station as well. The idea being, with all the regular freighters that come through your area, our proximity becomes the best idea, and they're not wrong. Taming the beast that is this environment, however, has had some complication. He just doesn't trust me.
Certainly move as quick as we possibly can, especially given that information. I think it helps our captain has given us the guidance to be as quick as possible outside of this information.
I should probably tell you that I requested Starfleet aid 6 months ago. It cleared through his team 2 weeks ago, and only after the death of about 60 colonists going to a remote location due to the storms.
I'm speechless. That level of neglect is really, really horrifying, to be frank.
When science questions authority, and authority has a vested interest in maintaining authority, they'll do anything to stop the science. It's a tragedy that has happened many times in my planet's history. I have a fear that as we Talarians learn about the rest of the galaxy, that we're going to find that's been more and more true with every planet, every history. That truth will always be the first victim of power.
I will not respond to that, but nod solemnly. I don't really want to spiral us out of control here.
Understood. All right. As you get to the science station, there's a kind of like a garage. It opens up. You're in. You're definitely protected from any storm activity. There is increasing storm activity. The storm, it's not like rain and thunder and waves. It's more like weird types of ionic lightning that hits, but this area is fairly remote, so there's not a lot for it to hit. You are on a high ridge to a open basin, and there's definitely a riverbed that's going through, so you can get a sense of the vastness. If you could imagine like a flat plain with a large river running through it, almost the size of, say, Kansas or something like that. And this is like looking over that. This is the kind of areas that they're looking to adapt and protect and cultivate. And you go in, and this is a pretty decent kind of station. The equipment looks upkept very well, but it is definitely a military station that has a science wing, an observation wing, and you're definitely looking at equipment that seems to have been initially set up as a secret or hidden forward observation base that has been retrofitted and into being a scientific study. And Dr. Clark says, welcome to what we scientists humbly call the lab.
Thank you. Let's get to work.
Excellent. So you all will begin. We'll come back to you and the science and away team at this point. As we're shifting away, is there anything specific that Alana would like to look at?
Alana will ask the doctor if she's aware of any sort of surveillance that the major has in the lab.
To my knowledge, no. We Talarians care a lot about our freedom. While security is important, our security is generally turned outward. So whether or not there's going to be surveillance now that there are outsiders, I couldn't tell you, but we've never had issues where even the Talarian Authority has seen fit to watch its citizens. We're not Cardassians.
She'll smile at that. But for the most part, she's going to keep a close eye on both Neelan and Valeric, and also try to walk through the lab, get an idea of what the lab looks like, its nooks and crannies, doors and corners. And if anyone asks, she's going to say that she's just trying to check the lab in case the storms get worse.
Okay. Would you be kind enough to give me a insight security roll, with the concept being looking for just any information that'd be beneficial as far as being able to secure the location or vulnerabilities and secure points and vulnerabilities?
Okay, what's the difficulty?
Difficulty is going to be a 3. More
All right,
because to look at things intensely, there are some military personnel around. They don't seem to necessarily be watching you or following you or keeping you from doing things, but with the assumption that the goal is to not look like you're assessing their security level, that's effectively what you're doing.
all right. Then I will spend 1 threat and 2 momentum to get 2 extra dice.
All right.
1, 4, 19, 17. So that's 3 successes.
Excellent. And I had said there was a 3 difficulty, so you've hit the mark. All right. So the facility looks fairly secure based on the information that was provided in the briefing and what you understand about what's happening. The security should hold all the way up to and including a 3, but they might start dealing with some system issues at around a 3.
Actually, I do have a question. I do have a focus on hazardous environments. Will that count?
Absolutely.
Then that's 4 successes.
Okay, that gives you 1 additional momentum. which brings you back to 5 momentum. There are 13 total threat at this moment. As I said, there are numerous spots. It's a military base. It is designed to prevent outsiders from getting in. So everything, its command center is located in the center. Basically, it is designed in a way so that the least important things are closer to the outside and closer to the front. So the challenge here is if things get to a 3 where you'll start noticing some system issues, they're going to hit the science labs first. If
Mhm.
you get to a 4 where things will likely break or be damaged, it's going to hit the science first because that is the thing that they are least care about. The area they confirmed was not the most important, was the science in this case. Even though it's a converted part of the base, the equipment is converted. It appears now that you're looking at it that this was not its original location. They literally have downgraded the security for this lab based on their disdain for science.
Mhm. Then while they are working on the science, I will work on on an evacuation procedure should things get bad.
Excellent. That's going to be a fairly easy task to get your folks out and other folks along with you, assuming your focus is your folks, and then telling other people you better come along because we ain't making it. So finding points of egress, secure shelter here, that type of thing is fairly easy to do with your skill set. So that would be a difficulty of 2 to have to put together a plan.
All right, then I'll spend a momentum for an extra dice. And again, will hazardous environments count?
It will, but Joe, you had a comment that you wanted to make or a question?
Yeah, essentially when I get back to the ship and I step off the transporter pad, I go, Chief, interface with Lieutenant Chem and get them some transporter enhancers beamed down when they get to the lab so that we can maintain a more effective transporter lock.
Okay. We'll include that into the plan as well. So what I will say is,
So can I roll to assist plan?
yep, exactly. That'll work.
Okay. And is this going to be inside security or control security, maybe?
I would say either control or reason, depending on your specific approach for security, because this is the creation of a plan, which could be reason. Control could be, look, we already have protocols for a different thing. This is about the fine tuning and emplacement of said plan. So I would say either one would probably work depending on your
Yeah.
thought.
I'd like to go control security.
Okay,
All right. 16, 13, 6, so 2 successes.
excellent. And the assist.
I assist with a 13.
All right. So that is 3 total. And the difficulty I gave you was 2, correct?
2.
All right. So that gives you a single momentum. The plan is in place. The pattern buffers are in place because specifically who assisted and the way they did that, we're going to preclude the standard Talarian, you can't bring new crap into our secret base issue because the captain made the order. Dilamus Christian is effectively saying this is necessary for us to be able to assist you properly. And when it bubbled up to Lennox, he did not choose this to be the hill he was dying on. So he allowed you to be able to, in his words, if you must flee, then I'll give you the ability to flee.
He has no problem with us getting the heck out of this planet.
To be fair, if you leave and there's damage, that strengthens his position within the Talarian Republic Guard. That they were strong enough to stay when Starfleet tucked tail and ran.
Or removed ourselves to a safer distance. Potato.
Yeah, but that a good plan is in place. And switching over to the engineer who's assisting with the science delegation.
Yeah, so Duncan's poking around. Is there anything here that they're physically working on, or is this just where they're staging everything, or where they've just been told to stay?
So the lab does have a lot of equipment that is actively working on things. So the lab is monitoring the solar shade. The lab has control mechanisms that are manipulating and working on the solar shade. That's all here. So there's a fair amount of information that, as far as how this technology is being implemented, as previously stated, it's based on root work from the Dyson Sphere science technology teams, but it is an extrapolation from somebody who was never on hand. And it's basically her theories being put into use. early prototypes seem to work on small scale. This is happening when they are scaling up the process. And so there is a lot of things that are involved in that. There's physical equipment in orbit, there's control equipment and transmitters and relays that are on the ground. This is the hub for that, and specifically within this lab.
Got it. Okay. So I will be checking out the equipment, just figuring out what we're working with, how it works. I will refrain from disassembling anything, but at the same time, I'm just trying to get a sense of what they're using and what they're not using.
Okay. Your challenge, because you're not physically getting into the guts of the thing, is going to be a little harder. So this is going to be a 3 to get that rudimentary knowledge. I would say that you could use momentum sense for additional information, or possibly trait creation if you successfully understand what you're working with.
If there's anything, if there's anything unfamiliar to us, or is it all pretty much standard tech?
The Talarians are a lower technology base. So if anything is unfamiliar, it is more the anachronism of what they use to achieve similar goals. Their theories are very pertinent, nothing unusual. Their materials are generally understood. Some of them are not manufactured as well, or raw materials are not as good, those kinds of things. So part of what you'd be finding out is, okay, if this is what they're doing and this is what they're using, where could the breakdown be, would be part of this whole thing. But I will say, because it is also based on that Dyson sphere data and information that may not have disseminated fully, because that's ongoing research. There may be some things that could be fairly new. Some of the power transfer relays within this and the control mechanisms are new uses of existing technologies and information. So that's where the extra difficulty is coming in, because you're not able to pull things apart and get into the guts at this stage.
Okay. Sounds good. I think I would just do engineering reason of this, or would this wouldn't be insight?
No, I would say reason engineering would be accurate here.
Okay. What do we have for momentum?
You are at a total of 6.
I will spend 1 momentum to get the
Got it.
extra die. Okay. And I don't think Duncan has any, because I'm not reverse engineering anything. This isn't really his forte. But that is a success and a complication.
All right. The
Oops.
station itself will assist you, because you are working with kind of what they have as you're looking through things. So you will get a roll from the station.
Okay.
As I drop that die on the floor, so it doesn't count, and the station does not successfully assist you. You are not able to get any particular strong insights at this point, other than everything seems to be working. The complication is this: what you don't realize is the mechanisms and sensors that are calculating when the storm's increase is happening are off. And I'm telling you all the complication because right at this moment, basically the storm intensifies and has moved on to stage 2, which means complications directly relating to the solar shade and this issue have increased in intensity to 19 to 20, and we are at a storm trait of 2. The lights in here are hardened, and so they do not flicker here, but monitoring systems are showing the storm's intensity increasing, and monitoring systems here are indicating that some of the facilities in the main part of the colony are calling for non-essential personnel to evacuate to shelter areas, because the storm is definitely intensifying. All right. We're going to go back up to the ship at this point, and we'll start right on the bridge with the captain.
Yeah, so actually, I will be heading towards science, because I want to send Ensign Brokoff and crewman Pazek, our 2 kind of sensor specialists, down to the shuttle bay and get them out in the Eagle.
Okay.
I said I wouldn't launch the probes without permission, but I'm going to send my enhanced censored runabout to do atmospheric scans. And then I'm going to have Tanari and Dorai and I are going to work on taking sensor scans of the storm, of the solar radiation, and like I said, start to build that irrefutable computer model of, look, dude, you're all gonna die.
All right.
I'm sorry, but your solar shade is screwing things up.
Sounds good. All right. So with that,
And also, Lee, on kind of the tact, also on my research, because this Dyson sphere technology, I'm going to focus on that, not misapplication, but like the unintended consequence of doing it this way. Once we figure out it's causing the problem and then figuring out the solution, right? I have a
sure.
feeling it's the Dyson sphere tech as opposed to just like it's a big umbrella is what's causing the problem.
Sure thing. All right. Your scientists are going to get going. They're going to get headed out. And you said the Eagle. So the Abbott remains at its ready state unless you're going to have a roll made to get the other one moving fast. That will take place in about 20 minutes. So effectively a little further down the road.
Yeah, once the Eagle's in space, if it has to fly down to the planet, it's already there.
So the mechanical question I'm asking is, are you going to rush to make that happen so that is available to you in this act, or are you content with that not happening till the next act?
No, I want to get the Eagle now and then
Okay.
still have the Abbott prepped and ready to go with
Okay.
crew in there chilling out and on ready launch.
Depending on how you want to go ahead and make that happen, that would definitely end up in a command role of some kind. You pick the attribute you would like to use. The ship would
Um,
assist with comms and con. Basically, you're communicating to the teams in question to get the shuttles ready to work. So the ship's con score comes into effect here, just because it would be longer to get it ready than you want. So to speed that up, difficulty is not much. You've got a quality crew. Everybody knew the mission they were on. The fact that one of the crafts was put on Ready One status indicates that the other shuttles could be called up relatively soon. In this case, it's only a one difficulty to make that happen.
I think Reason Command, as I explained to them the mission and like, what we're looking for in the sensor sweep, we're looking to get that atmospheric data using the Eagle's enhanced sensor suite to build the computer model. So this is what you need. Look for this and this.
Excellent. What that will do when you get to running the sweeps in conjunction with the Eagle, that will allow both the DC and the Eagle to assist in those roles.
Perfect.
And it will not further complicate the complication range because of the nature of both ships having the right equipment to do that kind of work.
All right. And with the amount of momentum we have, I'll just spend one to get an extra die.
You got it?
Then I've got Starfleet Protocol or Strategies Tactics. I don't know if
I would
those
say protocol in this case.
All right. So I got a 1, a 10, and a 14. The Reason Command is a 15, so I've got 4 successes with that.
All right. And Adam, would you roll for the DC here?
Okay. What am I rolling on that one?
You're rolling comms and con.
Is that the 14?
Should be a 15.
Oh, my copy of the Dilamus Christian has 10 and 4, but you're saying it's 10 and 5 now?
Should be 10 and 5.
Okay, which is good because I rolled a 15.
Hey.
Sweet. All right. So that is how many successes?
I got 4. That's a 1 from the ship, so 5 successes. So 4
right.
momentum over.
Yep. You are 4 momentum over. How would you like to spend your bonus momentum?
All right. So were we at 5 or 6?
When you started, you were at 5. You bought 1 die,
4.
which
Okay.
left you with 4.
So we're
You
at
just
8.
got-
So I'm going to spend 4 to create a potent 2 trait for the sensor data collection.
Okay.
So that when we go to try to figure out what the actual problem is, it'll be at a 2 difficulty less.
All right.
And then we also, because of the comms con, we're setting up the communication relay to the lab.
Excellent. So that information will be instantly shared. Basically, when it comes to that information, everybody involved can assist each other based on that connection.
Now, do
Awesome.
remember in second edition for each additional assistant above 1, the book requires you to spend a momentum, but my own house rule is kind of vein of too many cooks in the kitchen. I actually increased the difficulty range by 1 for each additional person who's assisting.
At least as far as having 2 ships assist, that's covered because of what we actually did. As far as other people assisting, we would definitely go by, I think, in this case, the momentum spend for that, and mostly because these particular challenges already have their built-in complication ranges, and that would get unwieldy very quickly. So I'm going to be a little kinder in that regard. So with that said, you've got ships launched, you've got folks ready to work on the info. So we've got Tanari, the captain, on board the DC, getting ready to do some sensor work and data collection, from what I understand. Would that be accurate?
Oh, I thought, yeah. But
That was your piece?
yeah,
I'll
Tanari's
let,
doing the collection.
Tanari take the lead on the data collection.
All right. Then my approach then on the data collection is to try to work with the computer to get the data and collate it and get a program going to get it into a workable position.
Sounds good. The data collection work here is going to be a difficulty 4, less the
Ouch.
2 that was provided by the task. That's going to be difficulty 2 task.
All right. Then I'll spend a threat to get an extra dice.
Okay.
And I'm assuming I can get an assist from both the ship and from Lieutenant Dorai.
Correct.
All right. And my computer focus, that'll work as well, correct?
Correct.
All right then. And reason engineering?
Yes.
All right. So first of all, procedural compliance to go ahead and get a success.
Okay.
That is an 8 and a 17, so that's 2 successes
Okay.
with the procedural compliance. And then we have our 2 assists.
I can roll for the ship.
All right. And Lacey, if you'd roll for Lieutenant Dora.
I'm going to do computer science for the ship.
Yes.
All right. Ooh, got a 2, which is the DC science department is a 2, so that counts as a critical.
Sweet.
I rolled a 15. I'm unsure what we're aiming for.
I am trying to see what she has. Give me 1 second. Let's see. So she'd be doing reason science. She has a 14.
Just missed it. Sorry.
So I believe we have 4 successes.
All right.
Now,
with the
Dave, this is an engineering task, right? Do you have bold engineering?
Yes, I do.
So you can.
That's true.
You can.
I forgot I could re-roll that.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me.
You paid for the talent. You might as well use it.
That's a 5, so that's 5 successes.
All right. You are currently maxed on momentum. You have 5 immediate to spend.
Okay, plus I have 1 from intense. First of all, the image I've got is that Dorai and I are in holodeck 1, creating an actual spatial model of meteorological effects of the planet. Big old sphere of the world with a model of the solar shield on. Yep. We're sitting there moving the world around, seeing how various scenarios play out. So if we spend a question on this, if someone has a good idea for a question, I'm certainly up to options. But my first thought on a question is, what exactly is the effects of the solar shield on the environment?
Yeah. Or mine is like, is the solar shield causing this problem? Right. To keep it in the vein of the kind of traditional yes, no that come with a information spend.
That's
okay. It definitively is part of the problem, but causing it, not exactly. It is intensifying what would normally happen if the shield wasn't there. The fact is, this area would not be habitable long term and certainly not usable if the shield wasn't present. It is something about it and the way it's being used is intensifying specific types of that radiation, which is interacting with the natural environment here, creating these storms.
okay.
So it is simultaneously doing its job and working against its goals.
So it's almost like something would be pumping extra heat into a hurricane, making those work.
That would that would be a very good example.
Okay. Type this up, send the report to the captain's pad.
All right. And do we have extra momentum? Are we just at
We're
6?
max. We're maxed at momentum.
No, you still have 4 momentum to immediate spend.
Okay.
So above and beyond, right? Where
Yeah.
there's 10.
Yeah, you are maxed at 6, and you have 4 additional momentum at this moment.
Perfect. Like to spend it again to create another potent 2 trait that we've got the proof or the evidence of the problem, right?
Okay. And that would take all 4 because you're going to 2, potent 2, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So not only is the report providing enough information for the science team on planet to work the problem at this point, it is also enough definitive and documented proof that it would be hard for anyone who is not purposefully choosing to dismiss to be able to dismiss.
Yeah. Or will look foolish and agenda driven to anyone else who sees their dismissal, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we have a direct download from where we are to the lab on the surface.
That is correct. At this point, from the lab, the doctor will look towards Lieutenant Nealon, and she seems devastated with this information. I've made this worse.